Captain Barnes, how many firefighters do we have attending tonight? Total? So eight will be plenty here? Okay. Okay. Yes. Is this everybody tonight? At least to get us started? Okay. First of all, thanks for bearing with us for a little bit. What's going on tonight is I am doing an instructor course, so I'll be leading this course much like Fire 1 and 2 classes. This is for certification moving forward so that I'm allowed to teach as well. Had a little bit of difficulty getting some stuff set up, so thanks for being patient. This will run basically just like the Fire 1 and 2 classes on what's Chapter 13, but it's not going to cover the whole chapter. It's just several modules in it. Okay, so I do have a attendance sheet that I'm going to pass around if you wouldn't mind signing. We'll review this Chapter 13, take a couple breaks, and then at the end of it, there will be a 10-question quiz, kind of just reviewing what we've gone over and what we've learned from. So again, pretty standard stuff, not too difficult of a quiz, and we should all do pretty well on it. So we'll there is also there's 2 skills that would follow as well that I'll kind of go over with you, at least so that you have an idea for when we are able to move forward after this setting. You'll know the skills ahead of time to be able to go and perform those accordingly. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Again, thanks for coming. This is Brookline Fire Station. I'm Firefighter Austin. There are coffee and waters in the back here. If feel free to help yourselves. Also, restrooms are going to be out in the bay. And again, we will take several breaks to keep us going on that as well. So we can go ahead and get things in motion, running with this chapter 13, focus on hose operations and hose strings. There's a couple different appliances that I will ask Firefighter Brown to grab as we kind of move forward with a few things so that we can get some hands-on on some models to better incorporate their use and significance for this chapter. So, chapter 13, hose operations and hose strings. Right now, this is going to be learning objective 2. Do you have a question? I'll let you know as we get there. We're going to need the thief and the why. Is the 2 things I'd like to pass around. We can wait until we get going a little bit on it and then get those out. So, this is, again, we're skipping objective 1 for this testing purposes. Objective 2, we're going to focus on methods used to deploy fire hose. So this is taken out of the textbook. There's several different key points that go along with this. Obviously, your hose is either going to go from a hydrant or a water source, and then to the apparatus, or from an apparatus and then out onto the fire ground. So your LDH is what we're showing here on the other side with the left, and that is a hose roller, and it is draining the line for the LDH post use so that we can roll it up and reuse. And then we're going to go over these edge protections. When you're going across a sharp corner or anything like that, that friction and abrasion can cause damage to a lot of your hose lines. So advanced departments have implemented the use of these hose rollers, which allow it to travel easier up over 90-degree or sharp angles. And this is a collection. It is actually a rolling device, and it helps draining and rolling the large LDH, large diameter hose simultaneously at once. So while that's rolling up for you, it is also draining out the excess water. And these hose bridges and ramps. So there are 3 different types of bridges here. A lot of times on scene on a fire ground, obviously there's chaos, right? You've got a bunch of different people running around. Some that don't understand the importance or significance of maintaining hose safety. So these bridges allow for access throughout the fire ground scene on there. And then chafing blocks. Again, you're going to have a lot of rubbing frictions that will cause abrasions to the hose surface. So this just protects your fire hose from the abrasions happening. They're useful near pumpers, where you have the intake hose coming in contact with the pavement or curbs. And then the vibrations from that pumping can keep that hose constantly moving and causing problems and issues there. A big one that we're going to talk about when we start going forward, and one thing that I want you to keep in mind, is these hose straps help you carry some larger hose, maybe utilizing less personnel if you don't have an abundance on source to provide manpower on that hose. So we've got the straps, the rope, and then there's also chains as an example of ways to deploy and move forward with a hose there. So Went over just a few. Can somebody throw out a couple types of those tools that we talked about? The ramps, yeah. That useful for hose deployment so that we can basically all of these things that we talked about for deploying the fire hose are to keep the hoses safe, secure, and being able to be continued in use. So the ramps, the straps, remember that was a big one. Again, just something to keep in mind there. So now we're going to get with hardware. Firefighter Brown, if you wouldn't mind grabbing those two tools, and we'll kind of prepare to give you guys a little hands-on model there as well. So the hardware that's used with the hose helps control the flow of water, and it creates pathways for the water through the hose layouts, because like I said, if you've got multiple different hoses coming out from one source, it can get a little bit chaotic and a little tight in there, right? So these appliances just allow for further use and a little bit more organization. So you're getting into ball valves, clapper valves, butterfly valves, and gate valves. And that's one that we're going to show you a model of a gate valve. That's what we use quite frequently when we go to attach a hydrant there. All these valves have their own purposes. This is stuff that is also in the textbook. So, you know, do some research and gain some knowledge there. But these are just an example of some different valves that you're able to use there. And then the devices that we're moving on to, you can see how this is kind of one of those diagrams where you have some overlap on your different appliances coming through, your large diameter hose appliances. And yes, Firefighter Brown is here to demonstrate. And I think this thief is something that we're going to get to as we move forward. But this is an example of, it is called a water thief. And you have your lock in here. This is called a Storz for your large diameter hose to lock in. And then you control with these valves. And this is obviously the Y valve. It's a little bit lighter if you want to pass this around, and you can kind of examine it where you have your control valves here. And again, you're attaching to one line, creating multiple lines coming out. Excuse me?
What valve did you say that utilizes you were talking about types of valves. What valve
That's got our gate valve. Yes, 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 sir. And this is where this talks about the water thief appliance. So when we get a break, if you guys want to come up and view this a little bit, and it is pretty self-explanatory once you look into it, but those Storz valves we use a lot with our LDHs. Or the Storz attachments, sorry. So here you're showing that your Y appliance will divide single hose line into 2 or more lines. Your Siamese combines multiple lines into one line as well. Water thief, smaller outlets steal water from the main line. And on your LDH appliances like this water thief here and a manifold. Here we're going to get into some fittings. This will include adapters, reducers, elbows, and hose caps. So looking at those appliances, if we want to just review again. Any hardware used with the hose that will help control the flow of water. So you have valves, different devices here. Y valve takes 1 into 2 Siamese, allows for multiple fittings. Your water thief that we're looking at here. And now we're going to get into the actual operations as to when these go into effect, right? So This is one concept that is probably our more typical. It's the ideal lay of a hose. You see it's called the forward hose lay, where you have a firefighter manning that hydrant. He will pull the LDH off the truck, and there's a step-by-step process we'll get into to enable that hookup of catching the plug, as we like to call it. He will motion for the apparatus to move forward, and then as soon as he can get water flowing to that apparatus, now we're closer to the fire scene and able to do our job from the front. And that allows us to have water flow up to the apparatus, with us then to pull our lines, those quick connect or pre-connects that we discussed, and other lines from the apparatus to the fire scene. So again, kind of going into a little bit more detail of some advantages with the forward lay. Your pumper can remain at the incident scene, so it is immediately right there. That allows them to man the hose and equipment and tools right there, available in contact with the fireground scene. The pump operator can see the suppression, operation, man everything together, and react quicker and more effectively to the changes as they occur at the fire scene. So important factors on this are the connection. Always communication between the driver and operator is going to be vital, and the firefighter that is at the hydrant. So this picture right here is showing that this firefighter has anchored the hose to the hydrant, and he is signaling the driver and operator, looks like, to pull, that he can pull forward. That hose is secured, and then he can continue with his operations there. So getting into that a little bit, local SOPs and resources will dictate the method on how that firefighter is going to pull, communicate, and connect that forward lay. What our practice here at Brookline is to pull, wrap the hose 360 degrees around the hydrant, secure the hose connection, or the hose to that generalized area, motion for the driver operator to then move forward. As he's pulling out more of that LDH, the firefighter can then go and continue his hydrant hookup and get that effective, so that we have the hydrant line secured, supplying water to the apparatus as quickly as possible. So the hydrant connection for a forward lay, number one, you're going to pull that hose from the apparatus, wrap it around the hydrant, anchor the hose, and signal at your driver to proceed down towards the fire. And then you're continuing with your hydrant hookup operation. This shows different steps on the four-way hydrant valve operation. So you'll see step one is where you've got your valve hooked up to the hydrant. You're providing pressurized resources of water directly to the fire. And then you've got another resource here that is going to your pumping apparatus. Additionally, you've got a source from the pumping apparatus, and as the connections are made and you're secure and it's necessary, all lines can then be opened as needed to provide the required water for the fire scene. Now, this reverse hose lay is something that encounters not always in town areas. In Springfield, you'll see a lot of these as needed more out in rural areas. If we have a line here and we need to pump directly from the hydrant to the apparatus and then pull our line from there to provide water. So obviously this is not the the ideal situation. There are several disadvantages that occur when performing a reverse lay. It can delay the initial fire attack because your apparatus already has a source of water provided, right? So if your manpower has to manage the hose line from the apparatus to the fire with the apparatus not being at that exact point of incident, it can cause a delay with the personnel requiring tools, equipment, and then get them to the scene instead of being right there before the apparatus proceeds to the water source. So also the pump operator has to stay with his truck or with the apparatus and at that water source, so they can't, with adequate communication, obviously everything performs better. While they're at their apparatus, they may not be able to see everything that's going on the fireground scene. So this just kind of breaks down reverse lay with attack and supply pumpers. First arriving pumper will start the initial fire attack using the source from its own tank, as we previously discussed. Your second arriving pumper will lay that supply line, connect hose to its discharge outlet, connect intake hose, and then begin pumping there. So this shows reverse lay with first pump working alone for an extended time. You can see where they've utilized a Y source, allowing one line to then become two for further attack personnel and needs on that ground. Okay, does everybody understand the difference between a forward lay and a reverse lay? So forward lay, your apparatus is on the fire scene, right there, able to kind of control, manipulate as needed, and work immediately within the vicinity of the scene. Reverse lay, your apparatus is closer to the hydrant, and your fire personnel are then having to travel with the scene with all their tools, equipment, and everything, and the hose. So a lot of different, some disadvantages there for sure. Both can be utilized as needed. Okay. Okay, so we kind of got into this a little bit as far as the needs for, or the situational needs for requiring a forward lay and a situation needing a reverse lay. Like I said, a lot of times, if you have that first incoming apparatus that will go to the scene, there might be a reason to utilize a reverse lay there where he can pull a Y coming out of that single-use hose with ideas of another apparatus coming along to assist as well. So now we're going to get into deploying the pre-connected hose lines. This is showing the advancing of a Minuteman hose load, and that is what we have a version of the Minuteman that we use on our trucks that pull from both of our pre-connects on engine 1 and engine 2, and that is something that is also in the skill load that I'll kind of go over and hit as we're discussing this. So multiple different sections, and every organization kind of has different variations of how they want to, or how their hoses are loaded on the apparatus. You've got your flat load, accordion load, horseshoe load. So when encountering a burst hose line, obviously as science dictates, your water pressure will decrease, or the flow may stop altogether. So that hose line portion either needs to be addressed immediately, changed out, or replaced as needed when you're going on scene. So the two methods that can be used to deploy the pre-connect hose line is what we were talking about here with the Minuteman hose load. And one thing that we'll discuss with the skill sheet that we were talking about was when you're advancing a hose load. Flat load method is to put one arm through the longer loop. You then grab the shorter pull loop with the same hand. You'll grab the nozzle with the opposite hand, drape over your shoulder, and you will pull the hose load from the bed by using the pull loops facing away from the apparatus, briskly walking towards the designated area, which would be the fire scene. One thing to be sure of, regardless of your hose load type or situation, is that while you are deploying that hose, you have to ensure that all of the hose from that pre-connect is pulled tight from the apparatus. You do not want to leave any hose load, regardless, laid up into the apparatus while they are beginning to pump water. So we pull, we walk out, ensure the line is completely pulled taut, and then we can go through and flake the hose out where there is any kind of wrap ups, those tight 90-degree corners we were talking about, to get those straightened out so that we do have adequate flow of water and we're not losing any pressure coming through those lines. So as we were kind of talking about, and I'm very interested in some of the other types that you guys have encountered, what hose loads are you? Just lost power there for a second. Which hose loads are you guys familiar with? As far as modified Minuteman? I know we've got some flat loads as well in the accordion. There is one that has been discussed here recently that I know Springfield utilizes a lot, and that's called the Cleveland load. And I believe there is a picture coming up, or I will find one for you, where a Cleveland load has your bundle that one of those sections of the Minuteman has, but it is secured with a strap. And then when you pull that other bundle out, you've got your bundle with the nozzle end is completely attached, that you can then advance onto the scene and have your hose length there ready to go, that 100-foot or 50-foot, whatever sections that they designate there. So any other hose loads that you guys are familiar with at all? I know flat load and accordion are very common, just utilized as needed with some of the different apparatus in the area. So. Okay, so we are moving on to Learning Objective 3, where we are going to discuss advancing hose lines. And we'll go for about another 20 minutes, take a break, stretch, utilize the bathrooms, and then we'll come back to continue on with this. So as you can see, and as we've kind of already talked about with the different appliances and tools at our disposal, advancing empty hose over flat surfaces, no obstacles, is really not much of an issue. Once you start getting into maneuvering around obstacles, up or down stairways, from standpipes, and then getting up ladders and into the buildings, it really starts to throw a couple curveballs at you. And there are different tricks that come with time and with education. And again, the uncharged lines are much easier to advance, and then as we will get into, once you get that load advanced, how to get that line charged, how to function with that nozzle, and then prepare for your entry. So this, just as it's saying, it's typically the good rule of thumb is not to enter into a building with an uncharged hose line. This is showing the very typical working line drag coming in with the that hose line appears to be to be charged coming from that apparatus pump as you look closer at that picture. Safety guidelines for advancing hose line into a burning structure. Again, what we talked about is going back and flaking out all the kinks and bends in the hose to make sure that we have adequate pressure. You're going to open the nozzle fully, bleed all the air that is in the line, ensure that you have adequate flow, adequate pressure, and that you've got your desired pattern of spray. One other thing to remember is your team members, if you're doing a two-man advancement or deployment, need to be on the same side of that hose as you're advancing through. Like we discussed, there's a lot of chaos on the fire ground. Having members on both sides eliminates some of those obstacles as that first person is advancing. Continuing, always use your tick or your water spray. Check for the heat. Stay low when entering, and avoid blocking the doorway or the windows. Until you're ready to go, as you'll get into more of Fire 1 and 2, you will learn about airflow and path. So until you're ready to make access, keep those doors closed. Control all the openings. It'll help limit the flow path and the effects that will have. With self-closing doors, you will want to put a block or a chalk in there to prevent them from closing and pinching your hose lines, again, hindering water flow and pressure. It is a good safety practice to assume that there is heat behind any door. Advancing hose up a stairway. This diagram shows how these first two lead firefighters have come up. They have gone up that next level of stairs and created a loop so that they have that much excess ready to go as they begin preparing to advance. Your hose will rest against the outside of the stair wall. You want to keep the stairs as clear as possible. Avoid the sharp bends and kinks, because again, that will limit your airflow or your water flow and pressure. If possible, ideally you want a firefighter at every turn or point of resistance there to allow he can help guide that hose as it needs to come around those corners as you require more. Down a stairway, again, it's always easier to advance an uncharged hose line. Again, it's only recommended while you're interior to do that if you are certain that the fire is very, very minimal or minor or not present at all. Now, while advancing an uncharged line, it is easier, but you have no protection with it. If those conditions start to worsen, that will take time. It'll take communication. It is always better to have that charged line on hand, ready to go in the event that it is needed immediately. So advancing down a stairway, excess hose should be stretched outside the stairway. Firefighters position on the stairs to feed the hose to the nozzle team. The firefighters position at the corners and pinch points as possible. And you need to ensure that you have enough hose to reach the fire and make that extended reach as needed there. And this is exactly kind of what I was talking about here with this. See how that's strapped up there? That's called a Cleveland pack or a high-rise pack. Those are utilized to allow you that extra 100 foot of hose to quickly deploy as needed as you enter in a lot of the 4 or 5 story buildings there. And this is showing standpipe operations. Be alert for the pressure relief devices. The gated Y can be utilized. While you're making the connection, it is always better to have extra hose and not need it than not have the hose and need it. So extra hose should be deployed up the stairs. This is showing the method for connecting 2 attack lines to the standpipe. That's that Y that we discussed. You can see again they went above and gained that extra length, easier to make access, and should certainly have enough hose there to reach that point of the fire. So if we were going to improvise a standpipe, you can see this interior stairwell stretch. This is as if the top of you looking down, you've got your landing, stairs going up, stairs going down. You've got tie-off locations, and you're pulling that up from the apparatus along the side where you can tie off here at your standpoint, so you're not weaving all the way up those stairs, requiring excess hose. And this is showing a similar situation on the exterior. So this is your interior wall stair. This is going to be outside. So you've got solid supports being tied off here. That hose is going up the building into, looks like a window, and then being tied off there at that other solid support where you have that nozzle to advance towards that fire path. When firefighters must improvise a standpipe system, there will be a delay in applying water to the fire. Always consider that. Again, probably not going to be your guys' job at the immediate, but it is something that needs to be considered when they're planning or strategizing on how to approach that fire. If you're going to be advancing hose up a ladder, this is one time where I would highly recommend that the line is uncharged. The firefighter will need to be heeling at the ladder and can feed that hose to the members advancing. Per ladder section, you do only want one person. And this is also a great time to use some of those straps or tools to aid in advancing that. That's where we get into the different ropes and knots for how to advance that up. One thing in consideration is do not exceed the rated weight capacity for the ladder. If the hose cannot be passed up the ladder without exceeding the load limit, that's when we would get into hoisting it up. Okay, we've talked about this several times. Uncharged lines are always going to be the easier ones to advance. The downside to that is it is an uncharged line, so you don't have any kind of protection there at the scene of the fire if it's needed immediately. All right, so that's the main consideration there. Remember, the going down the stairs with the uncharged line is always much easier because you don't have that weight and added pressure pushing you down into the fire scene. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back here at 7:50 to continue on learning Objective 5.
That's mute. So green light's off, it's not on. Then this should be talking. So that should be off now.
So I've got about 25 more slides, a couple practice tests that I'm going to put up as well, a few questions that we're going to run through, and then they do still have to take their written test at the end. Yeah, I know. That's it'll be 50 minutes when they get back. We've got 25 slides and then reviews.
So that question, let's just do engage. Show that engagement in the crowd.
Okay.
That wasn't meant to stumble you.
I was like, wait, did I screw something up? I was like,
That was meant to just be like, are you, so what, which one was that again?
okay. Okay.
I ask questions, it's not the second guess.
Yeah, I was like, wait, did I?
It's just to give engagement from the crowd.
Okay.
Revenue.
Yeah.
I want to see, bro.
Do you guys want to sign in for this, or does it just need the? I don't know how much they care, but it may look better if there's. I've got one.
Thank you.
Even though the objectives have the standards on them, I completed 2 classes, one for.
And they really should get 2 breaks, so we'll finish 5. I'll get them another 10-minute break, take a couple practice quizzes, and then finish it out with the quiz.
For an hour and a half for me. For
Yeah.
the whole year. Well, obviously, but for you, your hours didn't change. So I went back and deleted the objective off of our training that you'd started putting in. Completed it and it's still not showing up. Objectives. That's what I'm thinking. So we need to we do gotta address that.
We'll bring it up, and that'll be a better way for it to do it.
Yeah.
It won't be so bad, because we can say, hey, we just found this out.
Yeah, that's what I've been sitting here doing was playing with that and truck checks.
Yeah.
Because I wanna do a truck check, I wanna put a truck check course on there, so it's
Yeah.
very clear. It's 2 hours per day, it's.
Yeah.
Did I completed my timesheet. Was there a reason I needed to sign it this morning specifically, or?
No, we're still doing hard copies.
Oh, I thought Brown said he didn't do that.
He doesn't, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just needed my signature on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just saying that you worked your 48 hours because you didn't work anything extra.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
We're still currently doing hard copies. Yeah, we're doing hard copies and
But I did what I would normally do. I just didn't know if there was something.
no.
Can you sign that?
Yep.
No.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
there is no.
Nothing shocking or anything happened. Okay.
So I don't know what you guys had been doing. Is it because he had been doing that part of it, or?
I'd never, like, at the bottom, I'd always typically change the date, but my name was still there. So I'd never had to actually sign before. Was the only.
And you may or may not have to. I
Yeah.
just having a. So Brown signs his with his phone. He signs
So
on his
in-
phone.
Oh, okay.
Richard
And
typed out his name.
in the Excel,
Yeah.
my name's typed out, but yeah, okay. Okay.
Honestly, it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not.
It was just, so I didn't get them printed till today, this morning. That's why I was there.
when I got here. Okay.
Yeah,
Because I didn't fill it out until like Saturday, and I was like, oh, I was late on that. Did it not go through or something? Was what I was wondering. So
I have a new idea on truck. Bacon pinwheel burgers.
bacon pinwheel burgers. The pinwheels like the
Just let me fucking try it.
is it a pin like the pinwheels or the
I hope this isn't recording.
like ham and
it's your audio's off. Isn't it?
that's what Chief Glenn said. That's like the ham and sour or cream cheese in a wrap, isn't
No,
it?
I want to do bacon and burger and make like a roll and then grill it and then
Okay.
that'll be perfect.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
It is Thursday.
It has. I need something to drink.
We didn't run any cold.
Hey, I got it. This is the A shift I came to.
This is what we were looking for.
Where's the cups?
Right here.
They're all in there.
Yep.
All.
Oh man.
Except coffee cups over here.
Except what?
Coffee cups are over there.
How's that tea?
It's good. It works really quick. Like he was trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden we had tea.
Yeah, no. I didn't know you guys were gonna try, but I was showing you first.
It was all right. It was fun. I was just stressing out about getting this going.
No, we got you taken care of, Dale, didn't we?
Well, we did.
What do you got left?
2 minutes.
Slides you got left?
25 slides, and then the practice. And there, after 25 slides, I'm going to give them another break. Do a couple practice exams, and then
There should be a two.
their test. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we use that anytime when our first arrival, tenders the water supply.
Okay, so just hit the M.
Just be safe.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue. The game plan right now is I believe we have around 25 more slides to finish up this objective here, learning objective 5. We'll take another 10-minute break, come back, do a couple of these practice exams that I have or quizzes, and then wrap up with a quick 10-question quiz. Okay, so that's the plan as we continue on. This learning objective 5, we're going to discuss how to operate different types of hose lines, nozzles, and master stream devices. So, as we are looking into the hose stream, there's several different factors that you should consider. Your stream is more often than not going to simply be the hose line producing water onto the fire. As you start advancing and getting into some different types of fire, you could get into foam that could also be coming through that stream. And there's several different factors then that can affect the stream that you are fighting with. That is the velocity of the water introduced with that extinguishing agent if it is foam, the rate, gravity, wind direction, friction, which we'll get into as well, the operating pressure, which is going to be your driver operator at the pump, the nozzle design, and the condition of that nozzle opening as well. The one firefighter method is going to be one of the skills that we're going to go over, and it's typically going to be used on small ground cover fire areas, vehicles, if there is any rekindling during an overhaul operation, rubbish and trash, which we do run into a lot of trash fires in this area. And then fire on outbuildings or smaller sheds. So your one firefighter method is typically going to be used with some of those smaller fires where one firefighter can handle that. The two firefighter method is if you're doing interior operations on an actual structure, building, house, things of that nature. And then they may apply those hose straps that we talked about or another tool to help reduce that nozzle reaction. So this kind of just shows you where the firefighter at the nozzle will hold the nozzle with one hand and the hose with the other, and that hose line will rest against that waist and hip area. Your backup firefighter, okay, is going to be on the same side of the hose as your nozzle firefighter, about 3 feet behind. They're going to be holding the hose with both hands, also resting it against the waist or the leg, and they will keep the hose straight behind the nozzle firefighter. With your skills, as we continue on into those, I'm just going to go through that real quick for you. So the one firefighter method, we'll position the hose so that it extends straight behind, approximately 10 feet. You'll grab the hose, face the object that you're advancing towards with your feet positioned firmly with a solid base. Hold the hose line with one hand behind the nozzle or grips the nozzle handle, which we do not recommend. And then the opposite hand is going to be on that shutoff valve so that it is within arm's length in case you need a quick shutoff. You're going to prepare to absorb that reaction force when that nozzle is deployed, and that's going to be according to the local SOPs. And next step then is going to be to open the nozzle fully and get water flowing out towards that objective there that we place up there. With a fog nozzle, we're going to practice adjusting the nozzle as necessary to achieve the desired stream that you want based on your objective. You must always maintain control of the hose line with two hands. Close the nozzle valve to stop the flow of water and prevent what is called water hammering. Moving on to the two firefighter method, you grab and hold the hose line with one hand behind the nozzle or the nozzle handle, and the opposite hand will be on the shutting valve within arm's length. The second firefighter will be standing, again, on the same side, at least one arm's length behind, approximately 3 feet, and instruct them to grab the hose and hold it at approximately the same level they are, whereas they're behind them, that second area may be down closer to their leg. Both firefighters prepare to absorb the reaction force of the nozzle and open the valve fully. Operate the nozzle, flowing water onto the objective. Again, with the fog nozzle, you will adjust that as necessary to achieve the desired effect. And you must always maintain control of the hose line with 2 hands. Finalizing it with closing the nozzle valve to stop the flow of water and prevent water hammering. So, quick warning, do not direct a fog stream into a ventilation opening during offensive interior operations. If the interior crew is in a room or area immediately beyond the ventilation opening, do not direct a hose stream of any kind into the ventilation opening. If we're in some need for a 1 firefighter method for the LDH, large hose line operations, this will be used for exposure protection, overhaul if you do not have a master stream available, and there are multiple techniques to achieve this. The hose strap or a tool to help reduce the fatigue. We have employed this multiple times with 1 firefighter forming a 360-degree circle with that LDH line coming over the top, and then sitting on that line to prevent it and be able to aim it as required and maneuver it where needed. It is difficult to maneuver the nozzle. I have seen petite individuals allow that or achieve this as effective needed from this position with your seat on the hose line and then being able to adjust that nozzle to the affected area. With the 2 firefighter method, firefighters may need to anchor the hose line. Leaning slightly forward will help reduce or help control that nozzle reaction. So as we discussed, different ways that firefighters can help control the hose line, enlist multiple people to help manage that. Also the straps that we discussed and different other tools and techniques. The main thing to consider is having that solid foundation and base as you are advancing or guiding that hose line as needed. So now we are getting into operating different nozzles. One thing to be aware of is that each nozzle handles differently at the different recommended pressures for that specific nozzle. The pattern can also affect the ease of that operation. Velocity and flow rate can cause different reactions on that nozzle as well. One person can usually operate a nozzle on a 1.5 inch or smaller hose line. Once you get up to 1 3/4 or larger, you may require additional personnel to help handle that hose line with the pressure and force coming out of that. This is going to get into friction loss. So as you can see, as they've advanced this hose line, it is directly hooked up to the apparatus. They do not have kinks or major kinks or any obstructions. As that line gets longer, you run into lower PSI or force coming out of that. And you can also see here where that line slightly does link and kink and travel back, you're going to lose a little bit of pressure as that water is advancing around those corners as well. As we start getting into friction loss, again, these are increased by rough linings on the hose, which is why we went into such detail about how to protect and take care of your hoses. The couplings, sharp bends, number of adapters, the length of the hose lay itself, and the diameter. You can overcome them or reduce the loss of friction by increasing the hose size, adding parallel hose lines, increasing the pump pressure, or removing the kinks and sharp bends as you flake out that hose line. This is showing pressure loss and pressure gain when you're at that pump level. As the firefighters are going down, you are gaining pressure coming from that pump as they're going up, and again making that loop there and then extending towards the fire. You're going to lose pressure. So water hammer is what we discussed with this with the skill sheet, and this shows everything right here is that you want to open and close all of your valves slowly. Where this coupling is at can cause that this water hammer will hit and affect everything as that's jerked. So you can see how that travels to every area involved with that water source. Water hammer is when the nozzle is closed suddenly. A shock wave is produced when the moving water reaches the closed nozzle. It stops with great force. The resulting pressure surge is what is referred to as the water hammer. Its sudden change in the direction creates excessive pressures and can cause considerable damage, again, to all of these instruments here. On your couplings, the hose itself, pump, your main line, and the hydrant itself as well. At low flow rates, the water hammer is minimal. Once you increase your higher flow rates, that water hammer increases significantly. So, again, to prevent this, open and close your nozzles and valves slowly, and that will help alleviate that stress and pressure of the water moving back and applying that force. Okay, so we just talked about some of these here. How can fires operating the hose line combat the nozzle reaction? Things to consider is your nozzle opening, the type of nozzle that you are working with as well, whether it is a fog, a smooth bore, etc. And then size of your line, whether you need additional resources, people, tools, considering that strap. Multiple different things that firefighters can do to help with that nozzle reaction. And then moving on to what causes the friction loss, we discussed there's increases caused by the rough linings in the fire hose itself, bends or those kinks in the hose, the length that you are running that hose, the hose size, different numbers of adapter, multiple things there as well. And finally, what can firefighters do to avoid water hammer? Which we discussed that we open and close all nozzles and valves slowly. We're going to move on to master stream devices. These are deployed when the fire is beyond handline capabilities or effectiveness. If the area is unsafe for the firefighters themselves. Proper placement of the master stream device is going to be extremely important. You have to properly position them to apply an effective stream at the source, especially when using a fog nozzle the fog streams do not have the stream reach as it is going out to penetrate. They don't have equivalent to solid streams. This shows you again the importance of your placement of your master stream and how to approach that, the importance of it. If this does need to be moved, the master stream device, if it must be adjusted, it needs to be shut down before you can make that adjustment and relocate it. It can be time consuming and labor intensive. And anytime you shut that out, that does allow that fire to continue to grow. Another consideration for placement is going to be the angle at which it's going to enter the structure. You should aim the stream so that it enters at an upward angle, causing it to deflect off the ceiling and bank down onto your fire ground there. It makes the stream diffuse into smaller droplets that will rain down and provide the maximum extinguishing effectiveness. You will want to place the master stream device where it allows it to cover the most surface of the building, as you can see here. With multiple areas, you want to get acquiring the best bang for the buck on this. And allow it to, when there's a large volume of fire and a limited number of devices. You're going to flow a minimum of 350 gallons per minute. You don't want anything less than 2.5 inch supply lines. Small quick attack devices may be temporarily supplied by one 2.5 inch line. A third 2.5 inch line is required when the greater quantities of water are needed. Some devices are equipped for one 4 inch or larger supply line as well. Considerations here, large amounts of water will accumulate inside the structure. That will also be an effect on overhaul and increased damage to the property. Deployment usually requires a minimum of 2 firefighters. At least one will be at the device unless it is required to be in a hazardous position. If it's too dangerous of a situation, the device can be anchored into position. Okay, again, what we kind of talked about earlier was the added weight from the master stream can increase the potential for structural collapse. One of the three key things or points of firefighting is protection of personal property. So overuse of this and allowing that amount of water weight into the structure is not protecting personal property. Sometimes that is avoidable or is not avoidable and would require for a master stream regardless. On elevated master stream devices, you can apply the water to the upper stories as a direct attack and or supply 4 hand lines. This can also provide exposure protection from like a defensive approach, and you can they're commonly deployed by quints, aerial ladders, and aerial platforms. Okay, so again, we're just going to discuss how the master stream devices are used. As we can see here, regarding placement, safety, hazardous situations, they can be anchored, will typically require 2 firefighters and approaching with 2 hand lines, nothing less than 2.5 inch. And again, to keep in mind, they do supply an enormous amount of water onto the structure, which can then emanate into greater property damage or complete structural collapse. Okay, any questions over this comment or this content so far? Again, on these skill sheets, things that we are going to consider is advancing a hose load with usage of a flat load and a triple layer. How we're going to advance those, deploying them, getting them in set up for fire attack will be with 1 and 2 man, 2 firefighter operations or methods. We need to consider how we discussed the appropriate measures on grabbing that hose, facing your direction or for operation, and where we're going to pull that out, extending it completely out to where there is no more hose left in the bed on the pre-connect, and then returning and flaking out or getting rid of any big kinks, damages, or obstacles in the way. Okay. Again, flat load, you'll pull one arm through the larger loop, grab the shorter loop in the same hand, grab the nozzle, face away from the apparatus, and approach your target as we will put it up there. Walk that entire length, making sure there's no kinks. And we will do that both with the flat hose load and the triple lay load. The other skill will be the 1 firefighter method for deploying a hose, and the second firefighter method that we just discussed, having a person behind and on the same side, approximately 3 feet away. Okay. Were there any questions on any of these models or instruments that we used tonight? No? Everybody feels pretty confident with the lesson so far. What we will do is prepare for a break here shortly. I do want to do a quick review over different layouts that we talked about as far as the lays, some straps that you can utilize as well. So after our break, we will take a little practice quiz section and go over a few other key points before completing everything with a finalized quiz. Okay. So go ahead and take 10 minutes. We'll be back at 8:25. That last section was a lot of picture slides. We'll have to take some quizzes for sure. I've just gotta. I'll give
Have you done much teaching before?
That's what I went to college for originally.
For teaching?
Yeah.
Did you get a degree in it?
I have one more class to take. 8 years ago. I joined the Army right before, like.
I was gonna say, so I don't think they do it anymore, but used to, if you had that teaching degree or teaching certificate, something or how it went, you could actually get when you had Fire 1 and 2, you'd submit a deal to the state and they would let you take the test. Instructor.
Right away.
Yeah.
So 8:25, we'll configure for about 5 minutes, make that 8:30, discuss some of these other points until 8:45, give them 15 minutes to take the quiz and be done.
I'd push it a little bit longer, cause you have to have 2 hours,
Right.
and you can't have more than 3. So take into account that,
Okay.
because here's what you gotta think about. Person watching it, the chances of them actually watching the whole 2 hours, or something on, they're gonna go from the front to the back.
Yeah.
If your video stops at 2 hours, or
Yeah. If I had, at least 205 or something. But
yeah, go just a little bit longer. It's crazy when they get.
Yeah.
Cause we used to be, you had to do one deal of your choosing, like, one of my guys did how to make coffee, the prices. Yeah, that's good. Did you get your 2 done?
So if I unplug this and then mirror, like I used to be able to mirror this up here, but this will need to be unplugged.
Yeah, I believe so.
Hmm? Yeah, I saw this advertised the other day. Sound Off's making one to compete with Wheelin'. The Wheelin' Argus is pretty badass.
What's it go?
Huh?
What's it go?
It says it goes on the A pillar. The Argus goes on the fender. The problem is they have to put like a hole like yay big for the Argus. So. But that being said, it's super handy. And the Argus is like $600. If you have a Unity spotlight put on,
I think it was
it costs more than that.
on-screen code for training room. Oh, I think it's doing this one. Oh, it's showing I need code.
Oh, there you go. Ooh.
How do I? What is that?
No longer here, but we are here. Now is real.
Does anybody know the on-screen code for? I know I mirrored up here before.
You're speaking Greek.
Huh?
Took me a second.
What, are you wanting to use your iPad on the screen,
Yeah.
wirelessly or wired? Like, would wired work?
Maybe.
Okay.
But it only
yours
takes-
the C or the Lightning?
The like whatever the iPad or the Apple one. done it.
Here.
The only problem is you gotta run out of HDMI cord.
Okay. So now it should pick up the PC, right?
Should. There it is.
Chief, this will require me to,
So,
oh, there's the,
there's your passcode. The problem is it's only gonna be on that back TV.
no, yeah, but that's just because I was on the wrong one. So this should show me,
Airplane passcode, it just showed you on this TV.
yeah, that's what we're, but I don't know where to go to the,
Mobile device. There you go. Go right down.
this,
Go down to AirPlay. There you go.
Brookline Fire.
That can be your worst case, and we'll just move the iPad a little bit to show you.
Yeah.
This bad boy was not cheap.
I don't remember how much it was, but yeah. Not cheap. You got two of them, one's on tender product.
Question, there used to be 5 water tenders,
Yes.
and they just kinda got renumbered.
Okay. I wonder if I shut that TV off, if these others will pick it up.
Mine got here that just sold tender product too.
I wish I could have seen it.
Okay. Chief, I'm gonna need to move that, I think.
Okay. Whenever Richard gets back, we'll send him just a little bit.
Well, we just bought a PlayStation. Station.
See, I have one here.
You got a station too?
Yeah. On my own. That's the problem though, is you have to download all these. 72 questions, everybody plays a different game. It'd be cool at that time.
See, now we need to buy 3 PlayStation.
We will do as many as time requires me.
Is this like, you have to have a certain amount of minutes as a study session or something?
2 hours. It's got to go, but that included me setting up and
Where we at?
hour 25.
One of them was mine, but I never use it
It's an app you have to pay for.
on my Xbox. Right with that file was
Do I just need to turn it on again?
Yeah, it should turn green on you when it's on.
Just hold it down.
Yeah, just press release.
Oh, okay.
That should be working. It does not.
Consider it practice. Okay, so we are going to set up to do a few, run through a few of these questions. We're not going to do all entire 72, and that these questions are covered throughout the entire chapter. Again, we only did 3 out of the 5 modules, so there will be things in there that we may not have covered, but it is good information to know. Questions from this will be similar to the quiz that I will give out following once we elect the time for that, but they will not be exact, and those other questions from the other modules will not be included on your quiz tonight. It'll just be what we went over. So there are a few review points that that I did want to touch on as we continue here. We've kind of briefly went through everything, so things to keep in mind. And again, I'd really appreciate any feedback you have. But we're just going to kind of discuss the different tools for hydrant connections that we've talked about, the why, the Siamese, again your water thief, and your gate valve that we have that we operate with, and what those are used for. So keep those in mind. As we are also progressing and preparing for this quiz, keep in mind the water stream and effects that we had for that, discussing friction loss, just the effects of water hammering, what can cause that, ways to eliminate that, different advancements of hose lines as you are preparing, and what those different hose loads and lines are utilized for specifically. You know, I know with our engine 1, we have a bumper load that we have rolled up with a double donut, and that load is specific and designed for that exact setup because of the ease of unloading, how quickly we can pull 100 feet without any kinks, without advancing straight towards the place of fire. And the different tactics for applying those. So lots of things to consider, and a lot of knowledge to know here. And I know we went over it fairly quickly. Are there any questions or outliers that I need to get in more detail for you guys? Okay. We will prepare to Captain Barnes. We're going to need to shift that over slightly because I'm going to have to utilize that desk over there. If you don't mind making that maneuver for me. Oh, you're good? Okay. So the great thing about these that we can also look into is if there are questions, we will go through a few of these questions as a team and discuss them. And then if there are questions outside of it, we'll kind of vote on what we believe the appropriate response is. It will tell us immediately if we're right or wrong on that and show us the correct answer, so we can also get into a little bit of a discussion point there as well. Okay. Which nozzle is considered to be a broken stream delivery device? Piercing nozzle, smooth bore nozzle, automatic master stream fog nozzle, constant select gallonge fog nozzle. What are we saying, master stream? Is that what I heard? The automatic master stream fog nozzle. Piercing nozzle is one that we didn't really touch on. It is utilized by specific departments at different times and for operations. But it is what would be considered the broken stream delivery device there. While it is being applied, it doesn't send a steady, either the steady fog or the steady smooth bore that will come in and be consistent. What do standard fire hydrant outlets have that allow fire departments to connect hoses to them? That is correct. And there will be another question we may come up on as well, that the standard fire hydrants also have different sizes for your different hose applications. You have your LDH size that will be a typical, and then your smaller hose adaptions as well. And that I'm not going to get too into specifics on that because that will be a question coming up. When the stem nut of a dry barrel hydrant is turned counterclockwise, the hydrant is shut down, the main valve moves down, a ball valve opens and allows water to flow. Water is discharged through the steamer connection. What is that? Nope, the main valve moves down, and that again is going to be on one of the different modules than what we discussed here. What is the primary advantage of a nozzle that uses a slide valve? Does not cause turbulence, has no risk of water hammer, can be operated at a higher pressure, creates the widest variance in stream types. How can friction loss be overcome or reduced? This we went into some detail on. Adding parallel hose lines. Because as you decrease that hose diameter, your friction losses is actually going to increase, correct? And the longer the hose lay, again, you're going to have more friction loss covering that ground. And decreasing the pump pressure is working backwards as well there. So all Y appliances, and again, Y are the hose appliance that has one female inlet and multiple male outlets. Outlets are usually smaller than the inlet, and outlets are usually gated. So all Y appliances have clapper valves that control inlet streams, 2 or more female inlets and 1 male outlet, a single female inlet and 2 or more male outlets, or an inlet and outlet of matching sizes with additional smaller outlets. Correct. When advancing a hose into a structure, an uncharged attack hose line should first be advanced to the designated point of entry. 2 firefighters must remain at the entry point to guide the hose line into the structure. The nozzle operator and the other team member should position on opposite sides of the hose line. The hose should not be charged until needed because of the difficulty in dragging it through doorways and around corners. Water will absorb heat the least efficiently in what form? Steam, fog pattern, solid stream, or broken stream? No, it'll be your solid stream. What is a consideration for opening wet barrel and dry barrel hydrants? The barrels of hydrants should be drained sufficiently when not in use. All hydrants should be opened slowly but can be closed quickly if necessary. Closing a hydrant too quickly can damage piping and appliances of adjacent residences. As the main valve moves up, a drain valve is opened to allow water to drain from the barrel. Yep. What describes a constant gallonage fog nozzle? It's got an adjustable pattern fog in which the pressure remains constant throughout a range of discharge rates. Single pattern fog nozzle in which the rated discharge is delivered as designated nozzle pressure and nozzle setting. Constant discharge rate fog nozzle with a feature that allows manual adjustment to allow a predetermined discharge rate while the nozzle is flowing. Adjustable pattern fog nozzle that discharges at a constant discharge rate throughout the range of patterns at a designed nozzle pressure. What we said? The third one? No. Constant gallonage fog nozzle has the adjustable pattern fog nozzle that discharges at a constant discharge rate throughout the range of patterns at a design nozzle pressure. What tool is designed to remove discharge caps from hydrant outlets and open fire hydrant valves? So don't overthink this. And this is one that we didn't go into detail with on here, but it is, as we discussed, when you go in and approaching that hydrant to grab that plug, we're wrapping the hose, telling the driver of the apparatus to advance. We're grabbing something to remove the discharge cap. What are we using there? I was hoping I understood that question correctly because okay, when advancing a charged hose line up a stairway, avoid positioning a firefighter at doors and turns if possible. Excess hose should be coiled one floor below to avoid additional pinch point. Excess hose should be deployed on the stairs toward the floor above the fire floor. Lay the uncharged hose against the outside wall to keep the stairs as clear as possible. Yep. What is a characteristic of a fog nozzle? It will operate at low pressures, less prone to clogging with debris, features adjustable discharge patterns, or may allow hose lines to kink due to less pressure. Okay, the maximum recommended gallons per minute for a hand line: 40 gallon, 100 gallon, 350 gallon, or 500 gallon. So again, gallons per minute is going to be different than your PSI. So when we're running PSI off of the apparatus, that's going to give you different. It's a calculation or an equation for getting to your gallons per minute. When reverse laying a supply hose connecting a four-way hydrant valve is required because hose loads set up for reverse lays will have male and female connections reversed, does not provide a means from switching from pump pressure to hydrant pressure without interrupting the flow, provides no additional benefits and demands time and manpower that is best used for fire suppression operations, can be done if the pumper may have to disconnect from the supply hose later and leave the hose connected to the hydrant. So again, as we're discussing the reverse lay is the apparatus is next to the hydrant and your firefighters are further from the apparatus approaching that fire where they would disconnect or have that Y for a separate line as well. Remember that. D, 4. Yep, it can be done. The pumper may have to disconnect from the supply hose and leave the hose connected to the hydrant. I don't think this was on ours. Okay, here we go. What hydrant discharge outlets are considered standard? At least 3 hose outlets of any size, at least 2 hose outlets for 2.5-inch couplings, at least 2 large outlets, often referred to as steamer connections, at least 1 large outlet for 4 or 4.5-inch, and 2 hose outlets for 2.5-inch couplings. So think of the hydrant that we have out front. Standard hydrants at the come and go as well. Where were we thinking? Yep, 4 is correct. You'll have your large outlet for an LDH, and then your 2 smaller ones for 2.5-inch couplings to attach on there. Connecting a pumper to a fire hydrant using hard intake hose is rarely done because it moves water inefficiently, involves the same steps and actions as drafting from a static water source, can be considerably more difficult because it requires careful positioning of the pumper, is often the best choice because it can be done more efficiently than making connections with soft intake hose. Yep. Okay, we got a couple more in here. Which type of hose stream can more easily penetrate and saturate burning materials? A fog stream, a solid stream, broken stream, or straight stream? What is it? Straight? Solid stream could. I'll have to get back to you on the different definitions on that. Basically, your solid stream is the stream that stays together as one solid mass, opposed from the spray stream or fog. It produces by a smooth bore, and the straight stream is going to be much more compact, and the pattern will be tighter than your solid. And it says your solid stream coming through, your solid stream coming through is going to be more compact than your straight, so you're going to get more of a burst coming out of there. If a second hose line is being added to a standpipe connection, it should be deployed onto a different floor to avoid confusion, directly from the floor with the standpipe connection, along the outside edge of the hose line already deployed above the fire floor, down the lower set of stairs away from the already deployed up the stairway. B. Down and away. We didn't get into that. Okay, let's go ahead and just a couple review points that we will discuss. Okay. Ryan, tell me the difference between a forward lay and a reverse lay. Okay, explain to me what you just said.
Like, you catch the plug and then you drive the truck to the fire.
Okay, yep. Okay. What's an advantage of the forward lay? Okay. Give me another one. Grace, you got one for me? As he's directing the pump and relaying communication or information with what's going on the fire ground. Good. Okay. Here at Brookline, we implement and use the modified Minuteman for our pre-connects coming off the sides, correct? Of engine 1 and engine 2. What would you think would be a reason for us implementing the modified Minuteman? What makes that a good standard to follow as a hose load on both engine 1 and engine 2 where they're located? Either side, okay. As we're pulling, and have you guys pulled those before coming off? Yes, okay. As you're pulling and you get loaded up and begin to advance towards the scene of the fire, and we pull that whole load off, correct? We don't leave any hose on the rack. It pulls off until it's tight and on that pre-connect. The Minuteman will oftentimes have fewer kinks or less flaking required to get that extended to approach and attack your fire. Okay, that it is one of the benefits of that hose load, is as you unload it, fewer kinks are occurring if you unload it properly, as we discussed with these skills coming up. Okay, when do we... What's an advantage of an uncharged hose line? Okay. So when would you consider that being a tactic? Because remember, we talked about if you're advancing on a door before making entry, what do we want with that hose line? Okay. When would you consider using an uncharged hose line? Well, okay, I'll take that. Yeah, as you deploy it, it's going to be uncharged. I'm thinking more about what, especially in a basement area, minimum or no fire conditions. How about going up a ladder? Second, third story, it may consider, especially if we're doing a modified standpipe where we can get that up there and then keep that charged for other appliances, correct? Okay. Okay, one thing that a slide showed briefly that we discussed as well was as we deploy coming off of engine 1 and engine 2, right? We get to where we need to go and call for water. We've got water ready to go. We're going to do what with the nozzle first? Bleed it, get the air out, get the pressure out, make sure we're flowing steady stream. Close it abruptly, slowly, close it slowly. And then as we are advancing it, I want you to remember that picture where I showed that he was advancing it onto the scene as it was loaded. Anybody remember what that was called? Okay, working line drag. So it is a working line. It is charged. It is ready to be put into function, and he's got it over his shoulder, dragging it into the necessary location, correct? Okay, so we were just talking about with the uncharged hose line, if we're going to make an improvised standpipe up on a structure, what situation could cause for that or could call for that? Okay, we don't see that a lot on the Brookline side of things with standpipes because not a lot of structures are going to be 4 or 5 stories high, right? But if something were to cause that standpipe to either be expired, no longer functional, we're no longer able to hook in, it may require for us to either hoist up, right? Or pull up uncharged on a ladder, correct? And if we're pulling up a ladder, what do we need to consider with the ground guy and each ladder level? Yes. Also keep in mind, you're not $150 anymore, right? We've got gear on, you've got equipment and other things that are also adding to that as well, okay? Give me some examples, Grace, give me some examples of when it would be adequate or acceptable for a single firefighter to manage a hose line. Okay. Trash fires, small structures, sheds, buildings, things like that, correct? Do you remember, Ryan, as it was taught here, the appropriate hose size for a single firefighter before calling for secondary reinforcement? Yeah, 1.5 inches can be done by single, 1 3/4 inches and above may require is how that was worded in the PowerPoint. So I've beat this to death, but I'm just going to ask it one more time. 2-man hose deployment and getting ready to advance into a structure. Where's your second guy? And how far back? Okay. Okay. Okay, I believe most of this review should be should seem pretty familiar. I think we've hit home on most points that will need to be covered. What I'm going to do is pass out these quizzes. Everybody have a pen? Okay. We'll do 10, 12 minutes on the quizzes and then kind of review and go over as we discussed. And if you noticed on that attendance sheet, I will we'll review these obviously, but I will need these back to put in for data on the training record. Yes, sir. It is front and back. Bring it up. I will grade it, and then I'll pass it back for discussion. Just sit here. Thank you.
Don't be hard.
What's that?
So don't be hard.
Okay, I'll hand these back and we can review them quickly. Everybody passed. So, you did all right.
Oh man.
Whoa, hold on. I don't know where don't share. Okay, so there was one that was kind of tricky for people, but we'll review these real quick. Everybody else seemed to understand what I was trying to hammer home. So, which piece of equipment provides a more secure means to handle charged hose lines when applying water? Hose strap. Okay. In a forward lay, the hose is deployed from the water source to the incident scene. When using the Minuteman load, the hose should deploy with fewer kinks and bends. Which method is used to quickly and easily advance charged hose lines at ground level? Working line, I don't think anybody missed that. Advancing an uncharged hose line down a flight of stairs is only recommended when minor or not present. All right. In which situation would a standpipe need to be improvised by stretching a hose line up an interior wall or up the side of a building? So remember when we were talking if something makes the existing standpipe inoperable, okay? When would a single firefighter be assigned to operate an attack hose line? Small fire in a trash pile? Yep. When two firefighters are operating a small hose line, the backup firefighter should be positioned same side and 3 feet or arm's length, correct? Okay. When using a fog nozzle, as the fog pattern widens, when you allow that fog to get bigger, you're going to have that reaction go down and be easier to handle your nozzle and maneuver it as needed. What causes water hammer? Slamming the nozzle. Yep. And again, keep in mind that hammer that occurs is not just at that initial point, right? It travels back to all of those different places, continuing down into the hydrant and into the main. Okay, so. Okay, pretty good, guys. If you don't mind, I'll swing by and collect them again just so that I can input the grades into the training sheet. Does anybody have any questions over the material? No? Perfect. Here in this next class, we will we'll begin to start working on those skills and get some of those knocked out for you. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.